There are two kinds of people in this world. The people who fail to do what they know they should, and those who keep doing things they know they shouldn't. Guess what? You're both. Hi, I'm your host, life and business coach, Marcy Barker, aka your loving kick in the pants. In this podcast, I'll teach you the 6 steps of my accountability code that will help you wake up with clarity and show up with aligned action steps that make follow through easy and peaceful. All right, let's jump in. Hello, my beautiful people. It has been quite a while and I have a guest, and I actually was not planning on having guests for a while, but I went to a retreat that I was asked to speak at, and another person was coming and they asked me if I wanted to drive together. And I was like, I don't know if I can do like 14 hours in a car with a stranger. I have to like really vet her out. But good news, we're like best friends now. And I was like, Martha, you want to be on my podcast this week? So Martha, thank you for being here. How did you feel about 14 hours with a stranger?
You know what? Thank you for having me, first of all. Second of all, there's this thing called divine timing and divine intervention. And so when, it just felt right. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to drive 14 hours by myself. I would like to drive it with someone. And if we're going to the same place, she's probably not going to kill me. So, you know what? What was the worst that can happen? And look, we became best friends.
Yeah, I asked my husband, I said, do you think it would be weird if I like brought my computer and my headphones in the front seat just in case I wanted to get some work done?
And you did. And you never opened it.
Yeah. So anyway, it was just a new thing for me because I normally love meeting new people, but I just was like, I am in a new place. And the reason I went to that retreat was, okay, yes, I get to speak, but I also need to make new friends. And I'm like, mission accomplished. So for those of you who are new or haven't been here for a while, I've done quite a bit of guest interviews, but I've been doing a lot of solo stuff. But the reason I'm so excited to have Martha on to talk about improvement and accountability is Martha has a really, really cool story. But before we dive into that, I'm just going to give everybody a little bit of a precursor of what to expect. So I'm going to read Martha's bio, and then I'll tell you about the intention I would like to set for this episode. So here is Martha's bio. As a life visionary and a certified life and health coach, I help clients who are facing adversity in their lives, whether it is health, wealth, or relationships, re-identify with self and find harmony between their mind, body, and spirit, so that they can build resilience and feel like they are strong enough to face their circumstances and navigate their way to become the healthiest, happiest version of themselves. And you guys, doesn't that like kind of sound familiar with what I do? This is going to be such a great podcast. Martha, before I give a little precursor of the intention of this podcast, how did you get where you are in this moment?
Literally one moment at a time. This has been a difficult and arduous journey with tons of ups, tons of downs, and it's literally been one moment at a time.
I love that. And that actually fits perfectly. So listeners, I was telling Martha that the first part of this episode will be a little bit of history, because when Martha told me her story, I was like, that is so cool. And more people just need to hear this, because you don't hear this stuff all the time, hardly anywhere, actually. And then we'll talk about kind of the here and now and our experience at the retreat. I want to hit on a game that Martha played when she spoke at the retreat. And then the bulk of this podcast episode will be about how to move forward with what we have now. So what I really wanted to talk about with Martha is she was raised in a cult. And sometimes I feel bad like repeating that, because I'm like, that's kind of scary and I don't want to make you share anything that you don't want to share. But Martha, how do you normally introduce that heavy topic to people? Or why do you bring it up, would you say?
Well, I've been out of the cult now for the last 19 years. And for probably the first 17 and a half, I ran from this fact of my life. It's only been the last, I would say, year and a half to 2 years that I've really decided that it's time to use my voice for change and to bring light to this dark shadow that illuminates over so many. The word cult is a scary word, so I understand that feeling that you get when you say it. because it is a scary word. But the truth of it is that there's 3,000 cults of variant sizes just in the United States. So my story is just unique because you haven't heard it, or most people haven't heard it, but there's a lot of people that get out of cults and some that don't get out of cults. So the idea of cults is not a new one. It's just gaining exposure right now because of social media and because of the Netflix series and the Hulu series that have come out about cults. But the cult is not a new thing, and it's just gaining exposure right now. And I'm finally ready to tell my story. But I ran from it for a long time because it is one of those things that it's not like a badge of honor, right? I was raised in a cult and I was beaten. I mean, it's not a fun topic. And I found myself organically starting to be truthful about it and be honest about it once I could trust somebody. So it's not that I never told anybody in the last 17 years about it, but I had to really trust you. I had to really know that you weren't going to judge my parents or judge me based on my past. Like I really had to vet you in order to open that wound. And, you have to understand that during this whole process, I was healing too and suffering at the same time. And so the idea of having to tell my story over and over, it wasn't for everyone. And I really had to be sure that you would be able to hold space for my story when I shared it.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad I passed the test because it's really important to be able to have a safe place to share what you're going through. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, why was I so drawn to Martha and her message? Because yes, I have not been raised in a cult, but there are so many emotions and experiences that happen to regular people outside of a cult. So in your journey of becoming a coach, what were some of the things that you noticed regular people were dealing with that you had dealt with?
That is such a great question. And I am glad that I finally can ask it from this perspective, because this really is the focus of me sharing my message. I'm not sharing my message just so that people from a cult will resonate. I am sharing my message because I've experienced so many things that everybody else has experienced as well, right? And that we're all having to heal through and from. And, some of those things are, divorce, our miscarriage, our drug addiction in my family, is depression, anxiety, all of those things that have happened to me after the cult, right? Those are all things that resonate with quote unquote normal people, but also some of the challenges within the cult of isolation, manipulation, verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Those things all happened within the cult. And those are all things that people experience that are not in a cult in everyday, experiences, unfortunately, right? So all of those things combined are reasons why, as a coach, I resonate with so many people in, their life crisis or in their place of like, where do I go? What do I do? Because I've had so many of those experiences. And it's in those experiences that I have found life. I have found purpose. I have found my passion to be able to say, I've worked really damn hard to heal through the things that I've been through. And now I'm ready to share those resources, share those tools in order to help other people.
I love that. And I can 100% tell how much happiness you have in your life. And I think that's what not just made our trip so enjoyable, but has created a friendship that's going to last for a long time. So I totally vibe with that. And I was glad that when we were in the car, you're like, well, I'm going to save that story for when I talk at the retreat. And I was so glad you did, because I was enamored and I had no idea that was your first time speaking in front of a group. And I was like, Martha did so good. She killed it. And you guys, if you don't know, Martha's on the East Coast, and so she can talk in all sorts of accents. We were having fun about trying to talk certain ways, and Martha makes me want to talk like a Southern girl, but she can talk fast. I can only talk slow when I'm doing that. But Martha, you did so good in your talk how did you make it seem like you've just been talking about it all day long? I don't know. You seem like a very experienced speaker, but how, I guess.
I guess it's just the passion in what I'm getting to share, and how once you really embrace what it is that you want to do and what you feel called to do in your life, it really is that easy because you're standing in your power, you're standing in your truth, and you just speak from the heart, right? I think also, of course, I've had lots of experience in corporate. I worked in corporate for many, many years, and I had to manage lots and lots of people. And so I had to practice being able to speak and being able to resonate and being able to really identify with crowds, right? But as it were, like I've never spoken to a group of our size. I've never spoken to a group, period, especially not motivationally or inspirationally or having to do with what I'm doing now. So that was the first, and it was really exciting. And leading up to it, I had a lot of nerves. But once I got up there and I was just like, no, like these are people I've been hanging and vibing with all weekend. And now I just want to share. It felt like I was home. It felt like these were people that were really holding space for me, uplifting me, and just saying, do it. And didn't need to know that this was my first time. And it was a really cool experience. And I
Yeah.
hope to do it a lot more. So
I love that. And you had mentioned just now holding space, which led for a really great conversation on our way home, which was pretty insightful and eye-opening for me. So maybe we'll get into that. I should make a note of that. But I want to talk about or hear more about your talk on gratitude. And I think that it's such a beautiful topic because, yes, we can have this horrible past and all the things we've gone through, but I think there's so much power in saying, in the here and now, what am I grateful for? So, give us a little synopsis of the things that you talked about and, put a little Southern drawl in there for me.
hey y'all. So this was my grateful speech. I just wanted to okay.
I love it.
So yeah, gratitude. Gratitude is one of those things that I could literally talk about all day because it really does pump me up that much. And it has become a part of my life that is integral to everything that I do. I start out with a gratitude practice in the morning that, Marcy, I know that you do too. And it carries me throughout my whole day. And when we stay in an attitude of gratitude, it really changes the vibration of not only how we feel, but it comes out from us, right? It goes everywhere around us, and others can feel our gratitude, even without us expressing it, because that's the vibration that we bring. So in my speech, I just shared a story of how I found gratitude after being found in a parking lot naked and with no idea how I got there. And I'm not going to give the spoiler on that story because at some point that video will come out and I will share it. But the gratitude full circle moment was that an employee of mine came to me on the same day that this incident had happened. The following morning, an employee had come to me and just shared her heart, her vulnerability with me about something that had happened. And she was so grateful for me. And I realized that that was a full circle moment of how, even though this was the lowest point where I had been in a very long time of being found naked, but, what if my husband hadn't found me? What if it was a cop? What if it was a pervert? What if it was a stranger? Right. And so it really just full circle gratitude of understanding the moment that even in your darkest and most difficult times, you can find gratitude in those moments. Sometimes you just have to open your eyes and be aware. And this young lady brought that to me on this specific day. So sharing that story and then leading into just more of how to make it applicable to our lives. And so I really wanted to twist it, and I really wanted to find out like what makes people ungrateful, because we're not just a bunch of, mean people running around and, like that's not who we are, but what makes us ungrateful. And so we got to talk through some of those things that make people ungrateful. Some of those things are facing difficult challenges in our lives, right? It's really hard to be grateful when life sucks, right? It's really easy to be grateful when things are good and easy and everybody's smiling and you're smiling and your heart's happy and you're in love and all those things, right? But it's really hard to be happy in divorce, after a miscarriage, after bankruptcy, after things that are really, really taxing, right? And it's really hard to find gratitude in those things. Another reason why people become ungrateful is the feeling of entitlement or narcissism, right? And some of those things are things I've experienced on a very deep level from other people to me, right? That they had a hard time finding gratitude, but also just understanding that this is the world we live in. Entitlement is kind of something that's running a little bit rampant through our society, but understanding that gratitude can really be the game changer with that. And then the last thing that creates people that are ungrateful is that they don't have gratitude in the things that are just every day, right? We are a society of kind of instant gratification. And so we don't think about the everyday things that we take for granted, right? We take a lot of things for granted. And three of the biggest things that we take for granted that I shared in my talk is health, relationships, and which other one? Time. We take those all for granted. Time is not forever, right? Time is infinite. It is not infinite. I'm sorry. So, it's limited. And our health, generally we take our health for granted until something bad happens or somebody close to us has something health related that happens badly. And the same thing with relationships. We take those things for granted until there's stress, until there's an actionable cause, right? But the truth is if we were to pay attention to them now and have gratitude around those now, they could be and will be potentially more fulfilling. And so those are some of the things that I shared about gratitude in my talk.
I loved talking about those three different areas because it gives me a reason to self-inventory of like, how am I doing with these things? And entitlement, I was like, I know that one for sure. That's why people become ungrateful. And you talked about society is just like that. And I think it really is not surprising when people are entitled. It's like, of course you're entitled. I'm entitled. They're entitled. Everybody's entitled because of what we've been given at such an easy way. And also complacency in what you have is really important too. My kids, they saw this saying on social media and it says, why do people get more flowers after they're dead than when they're alive? And because regret is more strong than gratitude. And I was like, they say it in a way that's funny, but I'm like, no, that's true. Like, let's not let that become a thing for us. Like, let's give each other flowers now. Let's say the things that we would like to now before it's too late. So I am a really, really firm believer in the power of gratitude. And you noticed this too, because we were together for a weekend, but on my phone goes off at 5:55 p.m. every single day to count blessings. And sometimes my family does it easily and other times they don't. We don't push it. But I have noticed that counting your blessings is game changing for that moment right there. Hey listeners, the message of waking up and showing up is yours for the taking. In fact, it's free. I've recorded my entire audiobook and I'd love for you to consume it between episodes. Head to marcybarker.com to get instant access to the accountability code Wake Up and Show Up. All right, let's jump back in. So tell everybody about the little game that you had us play because I adapted it for a Facebook post and it went wild. There's like over 70 comments on it, people just having the chain going. So tell people about your gratitude game and how they can implement it right now.
Yeah, so the gratitude game I have is all just words. It's on index cards that I wrote these words, and they're generally words that we take for granted, right? Like breath in our lungs, the birds chirping, our internal organs, cats, dogs, and just words that we generally take for eating utensils, right? Our running hot water, our dishwasher, our refrigerator, ice, all the things that we take for granted. And I made this index card thing on little simple rings, and I basically just use it in my coaching for snapping people out of being stuck. Because often I shared in my talk also that I always start out every coaching session with what's going well, because I want to start it out in that vibration, in that good, positive, loving, supportive vibration. We'll get to all the yuck, but we want to start out there in that positivity. And the same thing is for that game. If my client can't find anything to be grateful for, I whip out the cards and I open it up, and it just feels serendipitous every time that they see a word where they're like, oh yeah, I know why I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that because of the way it makes me feel. And my mom used to have a sponge, and the sponge, she used it and it would smell, and she'd put it in the microwave and then we could keep using it. It was so cool. So like, I love sponges, right? So, I mean, that's an overreaction, but that's the truth, is that generally we take so much for granted. And when somebody can't find anything to be grateful for, I whip out the cards and they're like, rain, I love rain. It makes the flowers bloom and it washes the pollen off my car. Have you seen the pollen on my car? It washes. And it's just a beautiful moment. And I make them, or I suggest or challenge them to give me 3 to 5 things that they can be grateful for regarding this word. And it's just become this really cool thing that I've done with my family. I've done it with friends. I've done it in game nights with people I barely know, because it switches the vibration. It helps you feel this emotion. And it's, that's what gratitude is. It's an emotion. It's an action. It's a vibration. It's a physiological yumminess, right? So yeah, the game has been a lot of fun.
I absolutely love that too. Yesterday I took a personal writing course. There's some cute girls at my church that do this. And I was like, I need practice stepping away from my computer and not working. So I'm going to go to this class. And I've been there a few times, and this week was about sympathetic resonance, which I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but I learned. So she started saying, pick a body part, because your body remembers the things that happened to us. And immediately I was like,
about that.
I know, it's crazy how things just come together. And this is a full circle moment. So hopefully I remember the attachment to make this circle whole at the end. But during this time, okay, I'm going to write this down. I went from healing to gratitude, and here's how I did it. So I picked a body part, and the first body part that came to my mind was the top of my head. And so she was like, think of something traumatic that happened to you. And when I don't know how old I was, but I was playing at a pool and kids were swimming. We were throwing in dive tools and going down to get them. And dive tools are meant to be heavy, so they sink. So we're playing with them, and out of nowhere, I just get stabbed in the top of my head with a pool toy. And as soon as I knew that it was a pool toy, I knew which one it was. It looked like a swordfish. It had a heavy nose, and then it had a light fin, and I was stabbed at the top of my head. And so she's like, write about something like that. And I literally was like getting all the same feelings. Like I was like, I have blood dripping down my face. Like, I feel like I'm going to faint. This is weird. And I got to a point where it was like, okay, you focus on the negative things, or you bring back all these memories of trauma. And she said, now in your writing, you're going to write down more things that happen to the top of your head. Like, what else does the top of your head remember? And I was like, oh, I can balance books on my head like no other. Or I've had my daughter put her chin on the top of my head when I'm giving her a piggyback ride, or I've had people touch it, or I've had people do my hair and touch the top of my head. And as I was reading all of these things, we recognized that the first thing I remembered was something so traumatic. But as I continued to think of all of these amazing things that the top of my head has given me good memories for, I healed. I literally healed in that moment. And I was like, and I used to wear a side part, but now I wear a middle part. And I'm like, maybe I'm willing to be exposed and more open. And I mean, you could be hippie if you wanted to say stuff like that, but really, gratitude of any horrible situation, it's like, no, let's figure out all the great things that came from this divorce, or let's find what happened because of this bankruptcy, or because that friend's not in my life anymore. And I think it's just such a beautiful thing to switch our perspective, because now I'm not I'm not going to be surprised when something touches the top of my head anymore. And it's like, if something bad happens, it's like, nah, we're going to get through it. There's so many great things about every situation. So, wow, that was a full circle moment. So thanks for helping me put that together.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I would love to hear more about that because that is a healing moment too. I do something similar in my practice, but that I love the writing aspect of it and how it just naturally occurred for you.
I also, in telling my husband about this experience, did count my blessings because I told him, I said, some people have a lot of other physical traumas like sexual abuse or physical abuse. And I just was so grateful that I'm like, that's the extent of what my body remembers. Not really. We can go layer and layers deep, but going through your own gratitude practice really gives you empathy for other people and what they're going through and gives you the awareness to start filling in the gaps for other people and just being kind, being there, just like your employee showed her gratitude for you being there. It's like you were able to do that because you'd been healing. So, I love this. Okay, so you're coming out with a book soon,
Yeah.
right? So tell me about the
Yeah.
book because I want to link to it and I want to buy it.
Yes.
Can I have a signed copy?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
have a signed copy of yours and I'm putting it on eBay as soon as you become ultra famous. So I'm just letting you know. No, I'm just kidding. It's
I
for
can give
me
you another
only.
one.
For me only. Yes, I am part of a collective which is called Breaking the Silence, Voices of Survivors. And it is a book about that resilience of survivors in transformation. There's 21 authors. I am one of them. It's coming out on December 18th. And the head of this collective is Michelle Jewsbury, and she's just a phenomenal.
I know Michelle.
Do you?
Yeah, that's crazy. Sorry, keep going. She has a great story, so I'm glad. Now I have another reason to get the book.
Yeah, so she published her own story in a full book, and then she has just been really led to the charge of really helping others tell their story. And the whole process from start to finish has just been an amazing process of continued healing for me. At the beginning of this year, I really felt led to really start using my voice and to start telling my story and to start telling my truth. And it has been received so positively. And I think not only because people are interested in the whole cult aspect, but people are always ready to celebrate somebody that's done the work to really heal. And I am not healed, damn it, but I am healing every single day that I continue to share my story. I continue to help others, and I continue to offer the resources and the tools that I've learned in order to continue on this healing journey. I'm doing the work every single day. And so my story is just, yes, it's a lot about my experience in the cult, but I really love how Michelle really focused on wanting us to focus on the past, present, and future, because my story is not all about the cult. I have been out for 19 years now, and I've had a lot of life in those 19 years, and I have a lot of life ahead of me. I'm only 44. I've got a lot of life ahead of me. And so I have a lot of goals, a lot of visions, a lot of desires, and a lot of like, I'm going to do things. And so it's an anthology, so it's a little bit longer than a short story, but I really am proud of this work and this writing that I've done in my story in this book. And my story is just one of 21, and every single one of them is going to take your breath away. I've heard all of them now, and they're just amazing, amazing people. And so I'm really proud to be part of this specific author group. But this being the first time that I have really, again, shared my story, and now I'm going to be a published author, is really, really special. I plan to have a memoir come out in the future, but right now this is a product that I'm really proud of.
Yes, congratulations. I know that getting a book out there is no easy feat, and it stands for something that can be used over and over and over to share your message and share your goodness. So, yay, I'm excited for that. And okay, so I love also how it's past, present, and future, because there is such power in choosing to move forward and choosing, I guess I could be one of those people who kind of lives in the future where I'm always prepping and always planning and I'm ready for the next day and the next week and the next year. actually, but one of the things I'd also like to talk about is that when I spoke at the retreat, you had kind of a big breakthrough, which I was so glad because you know me, we were talking about the retreat and I was like, I don't even know I was there. We talk about some of the things that went well and some things we weren't too satisfied with. And learning about those experiences, it's like, that's why I was there. That's why I was supposed to be there. So in terms of accountability and what you experienced, what would you say in that moment will help you now and moving forward?
I think, well, I had several breakthroughs, but one of the things that I had a breakthrough around in under accountability, which falls under accountability, is, you know, we have to take accountability for our past in order to move into our future, right? Doesn't mean that our past is our fault, right? It doesn't mean accountability in that way. It just means that we have to be able to look at it in the face in order to claim what it is, let go of what we can no longer change and just accept it, and then be able to move on, right? So my accountability of my past, I didn't know that that's what I had done, but accountability for me led to forgiveness. And when I was able to forgive and when I was able to accept what that was, I was able to let it go, right? Now accountability has taken on a different meaning to me. Now accountability is what I do for my clients like you do for yours, right? We hold them accountable to what they envision their life to be. So I call myself a life visionary. Yes, I'm a certified life and health coach. I've done all the training, I've, you know, whatever, and I continue to do the training, but I see myself as a life visionary. And a life visionary holds vision and holds space for my clients for their highest good, right? So if they tell me that this is what they envision for their life, I'm holding them accountable to be able to do the steps that will create that change in their life incrementally and sustainably so that they will get where they want to go, right? So now accountability is taken on a much different meaning. But for me, you have to be accountable for how you got where you are now before you can move forward.
I love that. One thing that you said in our car ride too was releasing people of the ripples of their choices. And I was like, yeah, we could we could certainly do that, you know, because obviously people need to take accountability for their choices, but all of the ripples of their choices are not their fault. And
Right.
we all have a choice in what we can do. So that was really awesome for me too. So thank you for sharing that. And then the last thing that was also kind of funny in the car ride is we're talking about, you know, our human design and our personality type. And we were talking about it's really important for people to hold space for us. And I was recognizing that one of the reasons why I'm a really good coach is because I hold space for people, but just a little bit. We were joking that I can hold space, but just a little bit. And then, you know, people hire me to come in and give them a loving kick in the pants. So I think it's really important as we all move forward to say, you know, how much space do I need and from who? And how am I going to use the tools in my tool belt to keep moving on? So that's probably just going to be a running joke is that I can hold some space, but just a little bit. Yeah. So, well, Martha, thank you for being on this podcast. I wish that everybody had 14 hours with you. But also I'm like, I'm kind of special. I think we should just do it again. But as we close out this podcast, is there one thing that you're like, if they remember anything from this podcast, I want it to be XYZ, what would that be?
Well, one thing, wow, that's narrowing it down. I mean, one thing is Marcy's a pretty freaking cool human, and I've really enjoyed audioly listening to her book,
Oh,
The Accountability Code. But if I had to say one thing to remember is that you are not your past and you get to create your future. And the way to create your future is one moment at a time. So that's what I would like you to remember from this podcast.
love that. One moment at a time. And full circle, you said that at the beginning. You do it one moment at a time. And I will add, put some gratitude in that moment.
Put some gratitude. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
I love that. All right, listeners, all of Martha's information will be in the show notes, and she's my Facebook friend, so I'm sure you can find her through Facebook too. But if you're going to do any road trips, you guys better not do them without me, or else I'll be sad. So, Martha, thank you so much for being my new friend and being my podcast guest too.
Thank you. This has been so much fun.
Hey friends, I want to thank you for listening to this episode of Your Loving Kick in the Pants. If you got any value out of this episode, I would love for you to drop me a review or share with a friend what you learned. All right, I'll see you next Wednesday for Your Loving Kick in the Pants.